What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Dwyer from the Bunker Recordings and BetterMixes.com, and today we're talking about what we can all learn from my recording adventures on the island of St. John, USVI. So a little backstory on this. Almost every spring for the last 8 years or something like that, I've gone on a trip down to the Caribbean led by TV composer Rich Tizzoli to write, record, and mix music for various television shows. We pack whatever gear we can fit into our suitcases, fly down, set up a makeshift recording studio, and spend the next 2 weeks recording music. Our setup usually includes 1 or 2 microphones, a 2-channel interface, a pair of small, inexpensive monitors, headphones, a handful of plugins loaded onto a laptop, and a guitar and a bass. I'll put up a couple of pictures from some of our trips so you can see what we're working with. So it's a pretty basic home studio setup, just with the addition of an amazing view. If you happen to have a subscription to Mix Magazine, you can actually read a little more about this year's trip in the May issue. But anyway, this leads us to the first lesson we can take away from this. Make it happen. I see a lot of people use their gear, or lack thereof, as an excuse for not getting results. I'm sure we've all been guilty of this before. We think, well, if I had a better preamp, or that new plugin, or a better room, then my mixes would be great. And yeah, maybe those things would be nice upgrades. But you can't let that hold you back from making awesome music now. I can pretty much guarantee that you currently own enough to get great results. On our trip this year, we managed to land the theme song for an upcoming TV show. We had to write, record, and even mix it down on the island with whatever we had. Would it have been nice to have all of our mics and instruments and treated rooms that we have back home for that project? Absolutely. But we didn't. So we made it work. And it turned out great. All because we focused on what we did have, not what we didn't. And that ties into the second lesson we can learn from this trip. Sometimes having limited equipment can actually lead to better results because it forces you to get creative. One of the most important aspects of being an audio engineer is problem solving. I mean, that's practically all mixing is. My kick and bass are fighting for space. How do I solve that? My vocal isn't cutting through. How do I solve that? In that sense, this trip is practically a recording studio boot camp. We never know what kind of briefs or assignments we might get when we're down there. Sometimes it's big heavy rock stuff, other times it's chilled out ambient stuff, other times upbeat funky stuff, or anything in between. And with the limited amount of equipment we have, we oftentimes need to come up with clever solutions to get the sound we're going for. For example, drums can often be pretty tricky down there. For lighter stuff, we can usually get a pretty decent sound with the 1 or 2 mics that we have, but heavy rock drums with 1 mic is pretty challenging. Sometimes we would record each element of the kit separately. So first we'd mic up the kick and record that, then move our mic over to the snare, then toms, then cymbals, and just piece it together like that. Or other times, we'd record the full kit with just 1 or 2 mics and get creative on the mixing side of things. I'll link a video up here, as well as in the description down below, to a video I did a while back on mixing 1 mic drums. So check that out if you want to get some ideas on how you can approach that. But it's not just drums we're forced to get creative with. It's literally everything. Like I mentioned, we usually only have a handful of plugins loaded onto the computer, and it's Rich Tizzoli's computer, not mine, so they're often plugins I'm not super familiar with, and that forces me to get creative to get the sounds I want without my usual equipment. And a lot of times, it leads to really cool sounds that I never would have gotten by doing it my normal way. If you're up for a little challenge, I'd encourage you to try this out for yourself. Try recording yourself playing a song, but limit yourself in some way. Maybe only give yourself 1 mic to record everything, or limit what instruments you can use. Or if you're strictly a mixing engineer, bring up an old session and try mixing it from scratch using only a couple of plugins or something like that. You might be really surprised with what you're able to come up with. But anyway, I hope you liked this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe and leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. And head on over to BetterMixes.com to grab some super sick drum samples, to learn about my mixing course or one-on-one mix coaching, to grab a free mixing guide, and a whole bunch more.